Okay, next up we have Pantoro Limited, Paul Schmurlick, Managing Director. Paul holds a Bachelor of Mine Engineering from the University of South Australia. He has extensive experience in feasibility studies, project development and operations. He's been MD of Pantoro since 2011, where he transitioned the company from explorer to producer through the acquisition and development of the Nicholson's gold mine up near Halls Creek. He's also led the acquisition and current development of the Norseman gold project. And when Paul isn't busy running Pantoro, I know he's a keen outdoorsman and likes fishing. So please welcome Paul. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Paul, and thanks everyone for sticking around. I like fishing, but I don't seem to get much done these days. So a quick rundown on the company, Pantoro. A lot of you know the story already. We're an Australian producer. We started production in Halls Creek back in 2015. That's continued to produce for us consistently right through that period. We remain debt-free, we've got a good strong cash balance, we're unhedged, so we're leveraged to the gold price that we are very bullish on and we think has some way to go yet. And then we have a large development project down at Norseman, so we purchased 50% of that project 2 years ago. I think that we've effectively ticked every box that we aim to tick during that period, and we're at the stage now where we're ready to build and take that asset into production. I should say hello to our friends at Tulla Resources. They own the other 50% of the project and are stuck in Sydney, so not here today. In terms of our corporate overview, I think we've got a really good set of skills on our board. We tick all of the ASX corporate governance guidelines. We've got a really strong management team as well that's been very stable. We've slowly grown it as we've grown Norseman, but we've got that core group of people that have been there right from the start. So I've got a video coming now. I haven't talked through it yet, so if I mess it up, I've got a very professional version in our booth where you can go and put the headphones on and listen to a guy that's paid to do that stuff, but I'll have a crack myself. So I've talked a little bit about our mine at Halls Creek. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. This is going to focus on Norseman as we go through. As I said, we own 50% of it. It's a very large field. We've got a full 70 kilometres of strike, nearly contiguous, as you can see. It's produced 6 million ounces of gold historically. It has a very, very good infrastructure package where everything that we need to be in and mining is there, save for a processing plant that I'll talk about shortly. So those 6 million ounces historically have been produced from three main areas. They've been produced at plus 12 grams a tonne. We see a lot of opportunity for some good high-grade mining as we go forward. When Western Mining walked out of gold in the 1990s, they walked out of Norseman with a large amount of prospects where they'd done wide-scale air core drilling over the whole lake system. They did very little mining work outside of those key areas. So we've spent about $50 million and 150,000 metres of drilling over the last year in those 6 key areas that you're looking at there. And so those areas were the easiest to take to production from a time and a cost perspective, and that's the reason that we've concentrated on those areas first. They've all delivered very well. The processing plant, as I say, there was a plant there. It's obviously very key to our success going forward, so we've made the decision to build a new plant there. We have a very simple starting strategy where we have 2 open pits and an underground mine. That transitions through the life. All of those go back to the central processing plant, located in the same location that the old plant was in, just a little bit offset to the south. That plant will be 1 million tonnes per annum, easily upgradable to 1.5 million tonnes per annum. As the first pit's finished, Scotia transitions underground. You'll see that. We have another large pit called Gladstone Everlasting that starts. So the open pits that we have in the plan are all multi-year, large-scale pits that will sustain the plant over a long period. So, like I say, the processing plant currently set for 1 million tonnes per annum, but a very easy transition for us to go to 1.5 million tonnes per annum. The DFS resulted in 600,000 ounces of ore reserve. Believe it or not, that's the largest ore reserve that Norseman's ever had in its near 100-year history. It's only touched a very small part of the 4.2 million ounce resource. So we have a long way to go. We'll spend another $20 million this financial year continuing to drill additional targets outside of that stage 1. So you'll see we've been putting out a lot of results from the Scotia area, new discovery at Green Lantern, and we've just started with some results from the main field. We are continuing with our exploration as well, so we've done a tenement-wide gravity survey, 200 metre spacing over the entire tenement package. That's generated, in combination with magnetics, about 60 exploration targets for us to move along with, in addition to those prospects that sit there right now. So a huge amount of opportunities. We have drilled the first of those things on the lake, being sailfish, and we've got some really good results out of that as well that you'll see as we go through. So that's a quick 3-minute version of Norseman. Now I'll run you through the same thing again with a 20-minute version. So first of all, the DFS for the mine, we finished it just before diggers last year, actually, with diggers delayed. Phase 1 is a 7-year life. It's got some really good returns, very short payback period, and a small capital burden. As I said, every bit of infrastructure that is required apart from the processing plant is there and fit for use, and we're busily refurbishing some of that stuff now as we speak. I think the other point of note there, you can see that the cost to convert resources to reserves in that first feasibility was $22 per ounce, and I expect that you're going to continue to see that really low cost conversion to ore reserves, and we're building up for a solid ore reserve increase later in this year, and you'll continue to see that through into the next calendar year as well. So the project development timeline, I get asked this a lot. Essentially, we've completed everything that we need to at the project to get up and running. We submitted our approvals documentation late last year, and believe it or not, we're still working through that. So we haven't had to go out and do any additional work whatsoever. We've been caught up in a situation where the departments have a huge workload with a large number of projects, and so the approvals timeline is pushed out beyond where we would have liked to see it. Saying that, we've awarded the Epc Contract, so GER Engineering are building our processing plant. They've continued with the detailed design. They've purchased the majority of equipment, and so we've got a contract of 47 weeks from the time that they hit the ground to completion of commissioning. So that is the timeline. We're very hopeful that during this month we will receive all of the approvals that we require, and that construction will start in September. You can work the maths on that. Roughly late July next year is where we'll be targeting first gold production now. So like I said in the video, it's a really simple strategy for us. People get panicked by all of the prospects there. In our view, you can't have too many prospects, but to make it really simple, we've got that central processing plant. We have 2 open pits running at any one time, so we start with Scotia and Cobbler. We have the OK mine ready to go down and operate. So OK was fully refurbished back in about 2012. It's in very, very good condition. We walked straight in there, straight into stoping and additional development on ore, so it's in a really good position. I want to make the point here on production from multiple sources. You can see there through the current 3-year life, we always have sort of 3 production sources right through the year. So, you know, in some circles, I guess outside of operations, people see one big open pit with one big plant as being really attractive. We see it a little bit differently in dealing with narrow, high-grade ore bodies. The more production sources you've got, the better you can safeguard your operation moving forward. So it's really important in a narrow, high-grade situation to have as many production sources available to start as you can. So in terms of the project, you can see the processing plant as it was in an image there. We have been able to progress with demolition of that plant, so that's that same plant site now. The plant is gone completely. You can see that we're keeping the primary crushing infrastructure, but everything else is being changed out, and the site it's progressed a little further than that photo now. Very much ready to receive GRs when they're able to get to site and commence that build. And that's something like it'll look like in the not too distant future. Camp construction continued as well, so the accommodation camp's being built in the town of Norseman itself. Our contractor is constructing that camp at their cost, so that's all moving forward. And I think we've seen a slight increase in the processing plant capital just by virtue of the fact that we're now building the crushing circuit up front, where we were doing that with a boot contract previously. That change in capital has been very much offset by the arrangement that we've struck with the accommodation camp. Those rooms can be utilised at any time. You can see they're still finishing off going around there, but we're ready for our construction crews to move into that camp. So I wanted to concentrate a little bit more on the growth at Norseman. I think we've talked a lot over the last 18 months about the Phase 1 plan and where we go forward. So again, a lot of people ask about our exploration and why haven't we done a whole lot more drilling on the lake. It's pretty simple for me in that there's 4.2 million ounces of resource sitting there right now. We've converted 600,000 ounces so far. While new discoveries are exciting, we don't necessarily need to make a whole lot of new discoveries. We need to go and continue to convert those resources into reserves and to continue to grow the mine life that way. So you can see there graphically in the bar chart just how little of that current resource is in the current mine plan. I think the diagram of Gladstone below there tells quite a story where for the majority of the deposits to date, we've drilled the open pit position. So while we say we've attacked 30%, that's 30% of the total resource, but we haven't yet, at Gladstone as an example, drilled anything as far as underground extensions go. Moving forward, you can see there's multiple high-grade shoots there, and when you look in long section, which I don't have today, you see that same opportunity there. And most of the deposits that we're dealing with here have exactly that opportunity. So moving into Phase 2 now, like we've said, I think we've published sort of 100,000 metres for this calendar year of additional drilling. I think that's going to result in probably closer to 150,000 metres. We've been getting some really good drill rates there. Our prime focus are on these two areas. So Scotia is part of the Phase 1 feasibility, but it's been returning some really strong results that I'll show you some more of. And the main field. So the main field has produced more than half of all of the gold out of Norseman previously. You'll see through here there's a lot of areas that are untouched, and we're getting some really strong results from our initial drilling in there. So Mainfield was always a prime target for us. If you look from the first time that we presented the project, we said that it would be in Phase 2, and the reason it's in Phase 2 and not Phase 1 is it does need a little bit more time. It needs a little bit more drilling than those Phase 1 deposits, but we're very confident that area will substantially increase the mine life as we move forward. So looking at Scotia, first of all, Scotia's been a massive success for us. It's a large pit in its own right, so it starts at sort of 170,000 ounces in the pit before it transitions underground. Basically, every prospect that we've drilled down there has come up with some really strong results outside of that main Scotia area. So Green Lantern, you can see at the top there, and I'll talk a little bit more about Green Lantern on the next page. That will come into reserves in the next reserve update. The other two areas there, so Panda was the first thing that we discovered outside of the known mineralisation at Scotia. You can see in that diagram, unfortunately, there's a small waste dump that covers on strike. That waste dump has to go for the open pit development anyway, so we haven't continued to drill that, but we've seen, we've drilled it out over 150 metres. We've got mineralisation on both sides of that waste dump, so we have a strike of over 500 metres there. And the Scotia Sift discovery was only announced in the last couple of months. So essentially, a banded iron for the non-geologists. I call it a banded iron. The geos tell me it's a sedimentary iron formation. That has hosted a number of mines to the north. So that structure goes all the way north of the Norseman town. There's been a number of open pits mined on it over the years. It's never been drilled down in that Scotia area, and the results that you see there are the very first lot of drilling over 150 metres of strike in that area. So really excited about the opportunities for that structure right through the field. We've got some ultra close space magnetics to be done on there shortly. That'll give us some pointers for where we're most likely to drill up a substantial ore body there, and then we'll continue with drilling that area as well. So as I said, Scotia's already a big pit. It's about 1.2 kilometres long already. You can see there's substantial underground planned. We haven't put results out on the underground yet, but we have been busily drilling the deeps, and again I expect that we'll convert a large portion of material down there that's currently inferred into indicated and into the reserve. There's areas in there that are unclassified and not in any mine plans at the moment that'll come in as well. The thing we're really excited about at the moment is Green Lantern. So you can see Green Lantern to the south. It's offset by a fault. We've drilled at the dense drilling that you're seeing there, where it's sort of between 25 and 30 metre spacings. We've drilled it, detailed drilled 800 metres of strike. You can see that it's showing no signs of slowing up, and the holes we're 1.2 kilometres out there now from the existing open pit. This is all likely to become one pit as we go forward. We put a release out on that yesterday. If you have a look at that, you'll see there's some very strong widths and grades through that deposit, so we're really excited about that. So moving away from Scotia onto the main field now. Again, this is a massive system, so you're looking at 6 kilometres there on the scale bar, several different quartz veins, and difficult for people to get their heads around, and there's so much there to look at. But I think some of the key points, you can see there's 2 different declines existing, so the Viking decline and the Bullen decline. Up at St Pat's as well, we have a small open pit in the phase 1 feasibility study ahead of an underground at St Pat's, but again that'll give us that good access to the north of this field. So all of the mining here, well not all of the mining, but the majority of the mining previously has been shaft and rail. Access was difficult for additional exploration and for moving around as a result of that. We've got a real opportunity now to move in with modern methods, access a lot of areas that were difficult for access previously. And you can see the areas in green there are the areas that we've focused in on, first of all for their prospectivity, but also for their ease of access. So this is the Crown Reef. So you can see up towards the top of that slide, Crown Mararoa. Crown Reef's a really interesting one. There's about 250,000 ounces of gold in the resource in the Crown. All of that resource is in the areas that are coloured pink that you can see have been mined. So they are island pillars that have been left as a result of mining. Unbelievably, you can see the massive blocks that have been developed there outside of that, and they just haven't been mined yet. So this was last mined in the 1970s. We've done some drilling. You can see the drilling that we did in that first pillar. Got a really spectacular hit of 5.7 metres at 35 grams a tonne. So it's by no means been left there because it's dead. There's enough drilling in there to be confident that we have continuing high grade in all of those areas, and over time we expect all of that area to come into resource. The large pillars at the top from left to right will be the areas that we drill out first in the Crown Reef to put into reserve, and then we'll progressively work down. And this is only in the order of 400 metres away from the Bullen decline as it exists now. So again, a really easy access for us. And this is at the south end of the Butterfly Reef, so I think it's another really good example of really simple opportunity in that the Viking decline there went down on a cross-linking structure called the the Royal Standard. We have guys that worked in there, still working at Norseman. They walked away from there with visible gold in the face. It's narrow, but it's very high grade. It's exactly what we're used to mining as a company at Pantoro. So there's an opportunity to continue on with that Royal Standard, but then what you see in the long section is actually the Mararoa Reef. So that's one of the main reefs that has sort of sustained Norseman over such a long time. You can see we've done wide space drilling to date. We've got some really good results right through there. You're looking at a kilometre of strike there, so again a massive area. And back at the Royal Standard, there's a hanging wall reef there that's never been mined. So we said it's a really easy move back into that decline and recommencement of mining. So over the next year, we'll get enough drilling into those upper areas to again put that into reserve and kick another mine off there. So hopefully you can see from those slides so far, yes, we have a 7-year life to start with, but I think that 7-year life is going to be doubled and beyond very quickly as we continue to invest a large amount of money in bringing these deposits up to being ready. So I've shown this slide before here. I think it's a really important one. You can see we're at the southern end of the Norseman or Wiluna greenstone belt, probably the most important greenstone belt in WA. We compare Norseman and Kambalda, and I think it's a great comparison where Norseman, when Western Mining decided to sell all of these large assets in the 1990s, Kambalda went to Goldfields, and Goldfields has done a really good job there, spent a huge amount of money on exploration, and they've found millions and millions of ounces up there. Norseman went into a small company. That company, called Croesus Mining, tipped over on the back of its hedges as the gold price rose in those early 2000s. It then went to another small company, and it just simply hasn't had any drilling for the last 30 years. So a lot of that prospectivity is on the salt lakes. You saw pictures of those in the movie. So those salt lakes are dry, but obviously it's a lot easier to be drilling and mining on the full land areas rather than those lakes. So Western Mining really didn't touch them until the early 1990s. They really only worked there for 3 years. They found a mine called Harlequin. That mine produced 800,000 ounces at 10 grams, and then they pulled out. So you can see the size and scale of things that we think we have the opportunity for on that lake system. So as I said, we've started with a systematic approach. We've done tenement scale gravity surveys. We've got magnetics, and we're doing things properly there as we progress, rather than just diving straight in and drilling. On very quickly to Halls Creek. The project that keeps on giving is exactly how it should be described. So we started with a reserve of 86,000 ounces of gold. We've produced nearly 230,000 ounces of there. Now it's been a very consistent producer. Over that time, I think we've hit the guidance spot on for this year. And you can see that after all capital and exploration in the past year, it's produced about $17 million of cash flow. So for a mine of that size, that's an outstanding result, and it's been a real help in pushing us forward down at Norseman. I think we don't talk a huge amount of how we're going up at Halls Creek in terms of it continuing to expand, but I expect we'll fully replace the depletion again this year. So you'll see that ongoing growth in reserve life. We've just released drilling this morning that shows we've got very, very high grades, 120 metres below our existing development. So we continue to see that mine expand and grow, and I think that it's going to be there for quite some time yet, producing really good cash for the company. So I think in summary, you can see we've got a really strong balance sheet. We've got a great production base that's profitable, and we're going to continue to make a lot of money as we develop Norseman and make a big operation there. So thanks very much.
Oh, thanks, Paul. I've got a couple of questions here on the text message. I'll throw it open to the floor first. Any questions from the floor? Okay. Keith Good from Eagle Research wants to know, do you have any silver grades at Norseman?
Yeah, look, there is silver at Norseman, roughly an ounce of silver for 2 ounces of gold. It hasn't been assayed historically, so we don't have any resources on there. But similar to what we see at Halls Creek, I think, you know, you effectively pay for your transport and smelting out of the silver credit. I expect we'll see the same sort of thing at Norseman. None of that's accounted for at the moment.
Sure, okay, great. Peter Arden from Groundwork has another question he asked in a previous presentation. Has your great success in drilling at Norseman benefited from better understanding of cross-linking structures, particularly in the Manfield, but elsewhere too, like Green Lantern?
Yeah, look, I think so. I think in Green Lantern we've spelled out pretty clearly in some of our presentations where we've seen some, the mineralisation strikes north-south. There's disrupting structures that trend northwest, and certainly where we see the interaction of those cross-links is typically where we see good high grades, and that's part of the reason for the detailed magnetics that we'll do over that banded iron. We see that repeat right through the field. Yeah,
I remember you had them up in Halls Creek as well, actually. There were similar sort of cross-linking structures as well.
Yes.
Yeah, great. All right, well, thanks so much, Paul. Please thank Paul Schmurlick.
Thanks very much.